Welcome back. We should all be getting kind of excited, I think, about where we are in the Messianic message as we do Baruch haba b'shem Adonai again this week, week number 27 of the series. And this is the building toward the climax of the Sermon on the Mount, as it's called. Next week, the Holy One willing, we will discuss the grand climax, the grand crescendo of the Sermon on the Mount, which is all about the Holy One teaching his disciples, us, how to be a high-impact group of disciples, how to give the world what it needs as opposed to what religion has given them, and politics has given them, and education has given them, and science has given them, and medicine has given them, how to give them something more lasting and more real and more significant. This is what the whole message is all about, chapters 5 through 7 of Matthew. He's already started out chapter 7, the conclusion. He's building to this climax a little bit at a time. And last week he told us, he said, judge not. Do not. The reason you're here is not to judge people. You could do that. You have the capacity and the intelligence perhaps to do that. That's not what you're here for. And that will be counterproductive to the great message. So don't give in the temptation to judge the people who are sinners, who are messed up, who are all kinds of problems inside them. Don't give in to the temptation to do that. Don't think it somehow makes you more spiritual or more helpful, because you're not. You're actually giving them the last thing they need. So he said, don't judge, lest you be judged. With what measure you judge, be measured back unto you. He said, don't throw that which is holy to the dogs, because the dogs, what? They'll turn on you and attack you. So don't throw your pearls, the important, beautiful things of the Torah, before swine, because pig-like people will behave like pigs. They'll wallow in their own waste and their own mess and wallow in it and enjoy it. And then they'll turn on you and try to attack you as well. And now that's kind of a bold, brash statement that Yeshua made, and sort of a wake-up call. So then what do we do? How do we relate to the sinners of the world? This is the subject matter he's going to address. He's going to keep addressing it now until the climax, the crescendo next week. So he's going to say some things this week that if you take out of context or you take a traditional religion, you're going to think he's talking about something he's not talking about. Because he's going to say, ask, and it will be given to you. And he's going to say, seek, and you will find. And he's going to say, then, knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks, receives. Everyone who seeks, finds. To him who knocks, it will be open. And you think, if we think, how many of you have been taught that's about prayer? But he's already talked to us about prayer. That Matthew 6, the previous chapter, the guts of the whole discussion was about fasting, about good deeds, about good works, about the mitzvah of the Torah, and then about prayer. He said he went into great detail, so much detail he actually told us what words and formulas to use when we address the Holy One in the secret place. Our Father, Avinu, B'Hashemayim, who is in the heavenlies, hallowed Kadosh B'Shmecha is your name. Your kingdom, may your kingdom come. This is how to pray. So he's doing something else now. He's not teaching us about prayer because he already taught us about prayer. He's doing something else. Ask, and it will be given to you. Sha'al in Hebrew. Sha'al means to ask someone something, to ask them to give you something. Now, if we're talking about how we're responding to sinners, how we're dealing and encountering people who are in need of things from the heavenly realm, the one thing we do not do is go to them with lectures and with counsel and advice and sermons. What if you go to them with questions instead? Radical idea. Radical idea number one, he's not talking about prayer. He's talking about how you relate to people. How do you start a conversation? You don't tell them what's right and wrong and give them your opinions. Don't give them your doctrine, your theology. What if what you did was instead ask them questions about themselves? What if you ask, and the first time this is used is in the story of the Exodus. In the story of the Exodus, what was about to happen was that the children of Israel were about to be delivered by the plague of the firstborn. The plague of the firstborn was going to happen to the Egyptians. And in advance of that, the Holy One told Moshe to tell the people of Israel, the slaves, to go to their Egyptian overlords who had oppressed them for all these years and decades and generations, to go to all these overlords and ask them for something. Ask them for gold? This is nonsense, right? It makes no sense whatsoever that you would do this, that this would be the approach you give. But what happened? They went, they asked, and it was given unto them. Ask, and it will be given unto you. This is the whole story of Exodus and the whole issue of the going to the Egyptians and asking for articles of gold, articles of silver, garments, precious garments, and fabrics, and they gave them to them. Isn't that strange? If they had gone to them and says, we're going to get out of here. Hey, God's going to punish you. You've been doing this too long. We're going to make sure you pay. God's going to make sure you pay for all you've done to us. If that had been the way went about it, this wouldn't have happened. But because he told us to ask, we asked. So what do we do those people down at the bottom of the mountain? As we've talked about many times in here, the Sermon on the Mount is Yeshua talking to the disciples about what you're going to do when you go back down the mountain. How are you going to relate to the people that you find down there? How are you going to treat them? How are you going to behave toward them? Don't judge them. Don't do all this kind of good stuff. Don't pass pearls before swine. Don't throw that which is holy to the dogs. What shall you do? When you see them down there wallowing in their sin, ask them a question. Ask them for something. You want to see this worked out in real time? How about go to the woman at the well? Yeshua and the woman at the well. He could have led with, where's your husband? He could have led with, you worship you know not what. He could have led with all sorts of stuff, but he comes in and he says, could I have a drink of water? Could I have a drink of water? That's how you lead? And what happened? She engaged. Even if she didn't get him a drink of water, she never got him a drink of water. But she began to engage from where she was because he asked the question. And that led into every kind of conversation you can imagine. This is the way in which it works in the kingdom. You don't lead with lectures. Now, I know you don't lead with scripture verses. You don't lead with the Roman road. What if you led with questions? Because what do questions do? Questions say, I see you as a person. I have questions for you. I want to converse with you. I want to have a conversation with you. Do you see the difference between that and a scriptural lesson?
I'm seeing a strategy in that because even psychology tells you that when you ask a person for a favor, it opens a door and makes them like you more. And it just, and then I was thinking about the seeing with a good eye. Because we're called to see the plan of God with heaven's perspective of we have everything we need available to us to do the plan of God. We have what this person needs, but we can't lead with that. So, yeah, I see that.
Now, again, this is the law of context in operation. You need to look at Scripture in context and teachings of the Messiah in its context. If you look at it independently, you say, yeah, this is just about prayer. Ask and you shall receive from God. Seek and you will find from God. Knock and it will be opened from God. But that's not what the context he's using this in. He's using this in the context of don't judge people. Don't go down there with your attitudes and your opinions and your doctrines and your theologies and your canned memory verses. Go down there and treat them like real human beings. Because whenever you ask a person a question, it immediately implies you consider them to be important and their answer to matter. Shock of all shocks. That might just actually have some impact. Better impact than a memory verse. Better impact than an attitude or an opinion or a judgment. Maybe if you actually presented a question to somebody and let them know you care about them and their opinion and what they have to say, maybe that's the key to opening the doors. He says, ask and you will be given to you. And it says, seek and you will find. Now this is like Yeshua didn't give up when she didn't give him a drink of water. She spewed out all this stuff at the woman with the well, spewed out all this stuff about, you don't talk to us. We're Samaritans. You're Jews. If it was like most of us, we say, well, they're not interested. She's not interested in this conversation. I'm just leaving. He began to interact with her right where she was. He sought. He sought. He sought more interaction, more engagement, more involvement with her life. And she began to address the thing. Whatever she brought up, he began to address. This is totally yielding control of the subject matter of the conversation to the one that you're trying to talk to. So seek, and he says, and you will find. And what happened? He found out a bunch of stuff. He found out where she was, and he probably may have known that by intuition, but he saw it in real time. And we find out where people really are by asking them questions and keep pursuing it. Pursue, seek. And you find out what they need, or what at least they perceive they need, and what they're concerned about, what they're upset about. This idea of learning, this is how you interact with people if you're going to be in the kingdom, how you relate to folks. Just seek and you will find. In other words, don't give up on the first question. Ask and you will find, but seek, they will be given to you. Seek and you will find. And keep going. Knock, and let it be known that you're intuitive. You really care enough to keep pursuing this issue. Well, this would change every interaction we ever have with anyone who is, quote, lost, or anyone who's, quote, hurting or wounded or broken. If we just quit trying to tell them stuff and listen to them and became good listeners and became responsive and actually cared about what they said, as opposed to interpreting what they said in light of what our next memory verse will be. You know, the one thing they learn about how to be a good listener, don't be thinking about what you're going to say the whole time they're talking, because you won't listen. A good listener doesn't think about what they're going to say while the other person is talking. You have to let them talk and listen to what they say, pause if necessary, and then respond to what they said fresh without canned speech. Canned heat, as we used to call it. So he says, knock, ask, and you will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. Now, who is going to do the opening? This is a key factor here. This is where it does tie into something that we think of as prayer. Because it's not the person who's going to open it to you. It's God who's going to open it to you. It's the Spirit of God who's going to open it to you. As you hear this person talk, as they respond to your questions, as they deal with your seeking and your probing and your knocking, you begin to sense things and see things, and the Spirit will begin to awaken things in you, and it will be opened to you. So this is the key where God does get involved in this process, but it's not because you ask Him questions. It's because you ask the person questions, because you sought things from the person that you're trying to deal with. This is a key factor for all disciples of the Master. This differentiates us from the disciples of religion. We learn how to actually engage with real human beings, with respect and with honor, and not with canned phrases that we're going to use. So he says, for everyone who asks receives, he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. In other words, this is where you and I team up together, Yeshua might say, where I go before you and I begin, if you do what I tell you to do, I will open the doors and I will give you the information you need. This is not about you learning a technique or a strategy. This is about us working together and you giving me a chance to do what I do. How wonderful is that? Yes.
relationship about this? If I could ask.
Yeah, it's not about God's relationship with man, directly at least. It's about man's relationship with men,
Right.
human beings' relationship with them, each other. How do we relate to other human beings, and particularly?
The material things you ask and given to you and knock and
Yeah.
be open to you.
And even with regard to Yeshua's conversation with the one with the well, which I'm using as my illustration on this situation, if you say, well, he didn't get the water, the question wasn't really about the water. Because he got to say, if you knew who you were talking to, you would have asked of me. So he got the answer that he needed, not the answer that the people who asked the question want. This is the idea of opening a conversation and of having a real conversation with a real person as opposed to presenting some sort of canned religion.
And having it be a three-way conversation. Yes. Because if it's a two-way conversation, you're going to be thinking, I need to meet this person's need with whatever I have available to me at the moment. Whereas if you're seeing in the spirit what they really need, then you know that it's not you that has to supply the need. It's heaven touching earth. It's three-way. It's opening things up.
Okay, so let's go another example. Another example that we're going to use. Yeshua is coming into the temple area, and a blind man yells out, "Son of David! Son of David, have mercy on me." And what does Yeshua do? He asks him a question. What would you like me to do? What do you want? So he's talking in Peter's mother-in-law's house in Capernaum. He's had miracles, all sorts of stuff. People are now crowding around the house. People can't get in the house because it's too crowded. And there's a person there who's a paraplegic. And he's got 4 friends who have carried him on a mat. And the 4 friends can't get the guy into the place to see Yeshua. And somebody climbs up on the roof of Peter's house, tears up the roof, makes a hole in the roof. They get the boy. I don't know how they get him up there. They get the guy on the mat up on top of the roof. They lower him down with ropes right in front of Yeshua. Now, listen to me. Everybody in the world knows what they want. Why does Yeshua ask the question? Why did he ask the question? What do you want? It's like, duh! You can't see. Yes, he can see. The issue is to start the conversation, to have them say what they want, to have them discuss this whole process. And then they go through, and the woman, okay, so the woman who's got the issue of blood for all these number of years. Who touched me? He knew who touched him. Everybody, he knew that the particular one because he felt the virtue go out, the power, the influence. He knew what was going on. So he asked a question, who touched me? Do you see how this works out in real time? And how he is the example of how this all works? And because he asked the question, she had to answer. And she did answer. She spilled the beans. And if he just said, whoever touched me, you're unclean, you've been unclean for so and so years, and you shouldn't do that, and you're under condemnation, you're under guilt. Woman caught in adultery, dragged down and thrown before his feet. It's kind of obvious, okay? He says, you who's out sinning. He says, where are your accusers? That's an obvious question as well. He's asking questions because this is what he does. This is the way he engages with the person. Where are your accusers? I hadn't thought about it. They're gone. Neither do I accuse you. And now he has the ability to have this conversation. You see the process of how this works. This is the point of the message. He's trying to get it through to us, that we are to ask these questions with the idea of having a conversation that will really mean something and allows the Holy One to open up these doors of communion and fellowship with people that ordinarily would not give us the time of day. You think that woman would have sought him out? The woman caught in adultery. You think she would have been looking for him on the way home? The only way she got before him, he'd say, oh, those horrible men, those self-righteous Pharisees or scribes or whoever it was carried. They're the only reason she was in front of him that day. You can condemn them all you want to. You can blame them for all in self-righteousness, and it shouldn't be just, and you say, wait, if they hadn't hauled her before him that day, she would have never understood the love of God for her in that situation. Wow, maybe there's more to this whole thing than just knowing rights, religion, and doctrine stuff. So he says, now, I want to tell you how this works. What man is there among you that if his son asked for bread would give him a stone? That's just you people, you ordinary folk. Not talking about God involved in this right now. What ordinary folk out there that if you ask him for a bread will give you a stone? Now, I don't know, in our world today, I'm not sure. They might give you a stone. But in a community of people who are actually at least seeking to be righteous, if I ask Deborah, because I'm thirsty and I'm kind of coughing, and could you get me a cup of water? She's probably not going to go out to her car and empty her battery and bring me a lead cup of acid. I mean, it's just the nature of human beings who have some level of reality to them not to be so cruel as to give you something that's totally opposite of what you asked for. So he says, this is the way it works with human beings. If a man among you, his son asks for bread, who will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, we'll give him a serpent. Now that's really mean. I said, this is not God now. This is just you people. Do you understand? If you ask an ordinary person, even a sinner, a tax collector, a prostitute, if you ask any of these people for something, don't you think they'll give you something that is somewhat related to what you're asking for? That's just human beings. He says, if you then being, and he says being evil, if you then being evil, and I used to get offended by that because I knew he was talking to me. If you then being evil, I said, but I'm not evil. Well, if you know what evil means in Hebrew, you are evil. It just means you're self-obsessed, self-interested, self-promoting, self-focused. What does it mean to me? How does this feel to me? How do I feel about this? How do I like this? It's self-stuff. It just means self-stuff. It doesn't mean evil in the sense of morality. If you then being self-obsessed, in other words, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven, who is in heaven, give good things to those who ask him? So now we're saying, what is his involvement? He says, I'm going to make sure if you engage with me, I'm going to give you through this person, because remember he says, ask and it shall be given, men will pour into your bosom. Do you ever read that and think, I thought I was asking God, why are men pouring it into my bosom? Because God moved people to pour it into your bosom. This is the way this works down here. This is not about you praying or asking God for things. This is about him asking the person things, and God will cause them to give the things that you actually are needed in your situation. So he says, therefore, whatever you, and then he says, this is the wherefore, now the therefore. So what's this all been about? What's this all been about? This is about to tell you. This is the therefore. Every time you see a therefore, ask what it's there for. Therefore, he says, now, the story of what I'm telling you is about this. Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. That's what you do. In other words, if you want to have a good conversation with people, if you want them to have a good conversation with you, you got to invest that same good conversation in them. If you want people to respect you and honor you, then try by honoring and respecting them. By letting them know you care about them, they're important to you, their position is important to you. So he says, this is what this is all about. Whatever you want men to do to you, that's what you do to them. It's radical. It's not the golden rule as is taught in most of the world. This is about how to have influence in the world, how to have kingdom influence in the world. If you want whatever men want men to do to you, do that to them. For this is the essence of the Torah and the prophets. It doesn't replace the Torah and the prophets. This is the subject matter at the base of the Torah and the prophets. Amazing teaching here he's got going on. I think I lost my power. Try this one. Yeah, it's better. Okay, so I can calm my voice down a little bit now. So he says, now I want to, it's all right, we'll just do it this way. So he says, enter what? He says, enter by the narrow gate. This is a metaphor, the allegory of the narrow gate. He says, enter by the Hasha'ar Za'ar, the narrow gate, and for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And there are many who are going down it, who go in by it. But narrow is the gate and difficult is the way that leads to life, to hayah, the fullness of life abundantly and flourishing. And there are few who find it. So he has this narrative, this allegory of the gate. Those who enter it, what is it? What are men entering? What are the disciples being told to enter? He expects us to enter something, and he expects us to enter it through the narrow gate. What exactly are we entering? What is this metaphor all about? Okay. Let's go ahead and read it. Enter by the narrow gate, the challenging discipline life of subjugation of the flesh. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. Abadan. Total ruination and perishing. So we're supposed to enter into life, but there is also a gateway, a bigger gateway that's opening, it says, leads you to death. Now, can we just back up for a few seconds back to the Torah? Do you remember what he told Aaron and his sons after the death of Nadab and Abihu? Sort of the 5 different priestly functions. The most important one, the one that center was, you shall learn to make a distinction between the holy and the profane, and between the clean and the unclean. Okay, so the holy and the profane on one spectrum, the X dimension, and the Y dimension is the unclean and the clean. So you got this 2-dimensional diagram, two spectrums. At the top is clean, bottom is unclean. Over here, top is, or the right-hand side is this right to you? The right-hand side is holy, and the left-hand side of the spectrum, all the way down the other end of the continuum, is profane. He's got this is the way the world is set up, to have these 2 X and Y dimensions. Now, where did that come from? You remember at the end of Torah what he's going to say? At the end of Torah, he says, now, I set before you this day 4 dimensions. I set before you this day life and good and death and evil. I set before you this day life and good and death and evil. These dimensions, these X and Y boundaries are the same as good, clean and unclean, and holy and profane. So what he's doing here is tying it back to the idea of you can choose which way in life you wish to go. Or are you going toward the line of the death and evil, self-obsession, and therefore ruination? Or are you going on the road toward life, Hayah, and good, Tovah, that's supposed to be coming into the world that I've called you to do? Which one are you entering into? Because you're entering into one of them with everything you do. Every word you speak, every thought you think, every interaction you have, every conversation you begin is going to be entering into either one of these polarities. So which one do you want? And if you know that, you will understand you need to enter through a narrow gate, and the narrow gate is the plan and the will and the instructions of God. That's the narrow gate. The wide gate is everything else. Any other way you could possibly do it. The way men teach you to do it. The way religion suggests that you do it. This, that, and the other doctrine says you should do it. Philosophy says you do it. Political movements say you should do it. Education systems say you should do it. Government systems say you should do it. Anything else besides what the Holy One has said and laid out, that's the wide gate that leads everyone to ruination and destruction and does not accomplish the purposes of the life and the good. So, he says, narrow is the gate and difficult is the way that leads to Hayah, leads to life, leads to a flourishing, abundant life. I set before you life and death, good and evil. Remember that? So the road that leads to life, and there are few, he says, who find it. Just think about this with me for a while. Yeshua is offering us something absolutely fantastic. Entry into this realm of life. He knows that most people do not know where the entry point is, or what it looks like, or how to distinguish it. They have their own ideas about what life is all about. But he is offering to his disciples, and to all those who will follow his disciples, he's offering the way of life. That's good news for anyone who didn't know. But here's the deal. The way in is a very narrow way. It's a very close way because there's so much negativity out there. You got to squeeze your way through the holes and get past all the distractions and the deviations to get into the narrow place. He says, enter into it, which is life, the Hayah way, the way of purpose of life, the life and more abundantly, as Yeshua would call it later. Life flourishing, life that is thriving, that life. Now, I know that some religions and modern religion tends to equate, well, use the term eternal life. And by eternal life, they tend to make you think or mean going to heaven when you die. Not dying in the sense that you're particularly completely wiped out. You have a spirit life that goes on in the eternal fashion and whatever, and that's what they tell you it means. And you sit and say, how does it, it really has, it doesn't start till you die? That's kind of a paradox that life doesn't start till you die. Maybe it's because it's nonsense. Maybe you're either alive or you're not right now. You're as alive as you're ever going to be right now. Or you could be. Or you're not. Depending on what choices you make and where you choose to go. It says the words of the Torah, the words of life, are the way in which you go into the issues of life. So narrow is the gate, and difficult is the way that leads to life. And there are few who find it. Now, I think we throw this away in modern religion. It's all you got to do is believe. Where's a narrow way in that? Where's a straight gate? Where's a narrow gate? And you just got to believe these doctrines. You got to say this prayer after me. You need to repeat this prayer after me and believe these doctrines and sign your name on this membership card and pledge 10% of your income for the rest of your life. Where's the narrow way in this? Where is the straight gate in that? You see, you're missing the whole point. The whole point is, I told you the straight gate from the beginning and it hasn't changed. The straight gate is the way of the Torah, is the way I've set out for life, the way it's supposed to be handled. So that leads to life, but there are few who find it because they want to find an easy way. And he goes on, he says, now, in this context of knowing there's few who find it because there's been a lot of teaching the other way, and will be a lot of teaching a lot of the other way. He says, in light of that, be wary of Nevi'im Shecher. I'd love to throw the Hebrew out there because you're now saying, what in the heck did he just say? Beware of false prophets. In English translations. Why would he say that? Because somebody's trying to get you through another door, another gate, another opening. Somebody's trying to get you to go down the wrong road to life. There's people out there who tell you stuff, and they tell you and they suggest that they speak on behalf of God. They wear robes or have titles, and they have positions, and they get salaries for doing this stuff. They say they're speaking on behalf of God, and they may even believe it. But they're telling you to follow a wide path into the way of life. A way of, I just believe a few things. And I accept a few doctrines as real. And therefore it's all good. He said, that's not the narrow way, and that's never going to get you there. These are false prophets. He said, they claim to speak on behalf of God and to possess divine revelation, but what they deliver is false and misleading messages. It's not just about people who prophesy that the second coming is going to have to take place at a certain given date or time. Those probably be false prophets. That's not what he's talking about here. Look at the context. The context is people are trying to tell you that you can go through the gate of life some other easy way, not a difficult, narrow way. He said, they come to you in sheep's clothing, which means they come looking like they're clean. They have a parted hoof and a chewed cud. But inwardly, they are ravenous wolves. If you could see with my eyes, he said, if you had the enhanced vision of Re'eh, the eyes that see in the spiritual realm, what you would see is they look like sheep on the outside. They look like they're clean. They have a parted hoof, and they chew the cud like a sheep does. They have all the bears and marks that outwardly look like it, but if you could see what was really happening, what they really are is ravenous wolves. Now, what's a wolf do? First of all, remember he started this whole idea of clean and unclean with the imagery and the illustration of animals. This is important to understand why he uses these analogies here. He's going back to that. Because you understand animals. Do you really believe that that my Father created wolves like they are right now? Do you believe I created tigers and lions and bears to claw other people, eat other? Do you think I created pigs to wallow in muck and mire? Do you think perhaps that in the time around the fall, when everything on earth, every living being was corrupted, these are the ones that were corrupted? Do you think that in the world to come, or in the Messianic kingdom, when I reign and rule from Jerusalem, that lions and tigers and bears are going to attack children? Or attack domesticated animals and eat and claw? And do you think that's what's going to happen? Or do you realize what's really happened is some species have been corrupted? And some species are behaving in ways at this particular stage that are not designed for them, and that's the ones you got to avoid. Which ones are we avoiding? We're avoiding wolves. We're avoiding vultures who eat carrion. We're avoiding pigs who wallow in their own waste and then eat anything that's put in front of them, including their own waste. And we're avoiding all these things that have been corrupted, that are not living out the example, the model, that which they ought to exist. Now, he says that very interesting thing in Isaiah 65 or 6 or whatever it is. In Isaiah 2, I believe it is. He says it a couple times. He says, and there shall neither kill nor destroy on all my holy mountain. The lion, the wolf shall lay down with the lamb. I know we say lion and lamb, but it's really wolf. The wolf shall lie down with the lamb, and the child shall put his hand in front of in the hole of the adder, and they will not harm. maybe that's where we're going back to, but we're not there yet. We're in this corrupted realm. And so we need to know how to distinguish between the holy and the profane, between the corrupted and the uncorrupted. He says, what do wolves do? In their current state, they're ravenous. That means they want to eat everything in sight, everything that is alive. They want to kill and eat. You know, anybody ever encountered a couple of wolves in the wild? Out on a hike or, out checking out on your cattle or your sheep or whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden you're confronted with the snarling wolves. It's not a good feeling. It's a sense of extreme danger. And if you let yourself, you'll run, and which is the worst thing you can possibly do. So now you deal with it. This is what a ravenous wolf is like. This is what these prophetic types, these false prophet types, these ones who claim to know what God says. What do they really want? They want to eat you. I don't mean physically take you bites of you. I mean, they want to consume everything you have. They want your money. They want your attention. They want your respect. They want everything from you, but they don't give you what you need to have. So here we go. They are inwardly like ravenous wolves. And wolves are opportunistic carnivores. And their present state, which ones do they attack? The weak. They attack livestock who are penned up, who have no way of escape, or who have long since lost the ability of the natural way to protect themselves. So who do the false prophets attack? Those who are the weakest, those who are the most confined, who've lost the ability to discern and understand how to protect themselves. So this is where he says, warning to you, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. He said, but here's the key. You will not know them by the way the garments they wear. You will not know them by the outward appearance they present. You will not know them by the way in which they speak. You will know them by their You will know them by their fruit. Genesis 1:1, producing fruit after trees, producing fruit after which is the kind, with seed in them, which produces after its kind. And the key is that a man's nature, a speaker's nature will always, ultimately, over the long term, be revealed through what they do and what they say. So if you learn to listen, I'm sure that some of you are having people of your past, leaders of your past, or preachers or pastors or whatever of your past, come back into your head right now and think, boy, if I listened a little bit longer, I would have been able to hear what was really coming out of their mouth. I mentioned a certain person that I was very close to for many number of years in the first session, who is now, every post, everything he does is about politics. Even if he starts out talking about something about the Messiah, or he eventually comes back to his political realm. I say, okay, you've just revealed yourself. I understand now who you are. At least at this stage, you're a ravenous wolf. You want everybody to accept your politics. So he says, okay, so you will know them by their fruit. And he says, do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Well, I've never been able to find a thorn bush that had a grape on it. Not yet. I've had a lot of, in Arkansas, we have briars. You know what? Green briars? Not my favorite species. But I've never yet found grapes growing on one of those green briar bushes. It's just the way it works. You don't produce something that's not in your root. So do men gather grapes from thorn bushes, or do they gather figs from thistles? No, you usually have to find a fig tree. Even so, every good tree bears good fruit. What are good fruit? The will of God being done as he said to do them in the Torah. That's good fruit. But a bad tree bears bad fruit. What's bad fruit? Bad fruit is anything else besides what God says when he says it. As he says it. It says a good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Why is that? Are we just judging trees? Or are we trying to reduce the spread of harmful species, harmful varieties? Every tree that does not produce good fruit is cut down and thrown in the fire. You see the parable of the fig tree? Remember the parable of the fig tree? How you have fruit? Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what fruit is not. Producing I'm trying to be polite here. Very difficult to be polite to this situation. Okay. Well, let's just avoid my struggle and try to get into that issue. Forget what fruit's not. Let's talk about what it is. Just warn you that there are things that people think of as fruit that are not fruit. They are maybe fruit, but they're not going to produce anything that's going to reproduce itself. Again, they have a one-time fruit. Anyway, so now what is fruit? So if we're the tree, then we're going to produce life, right? If we're the tree of life, we're tied to life, we're going to produce life. We're going to make things where the life begins to open up, possibilities begin to open up, potential begins to open up, change begins to occur for the good. So this is what fruit is to us. If we're fruit of the tree of life, if we're good trees, have the fruit of the tree of life, then we produce life. And you can see in the fruit of the people around you, your family, your children, for one, that there's this life thing. Even if bad things happen, even if difficult times come, even if struggles occur, there may be falls, but the essence is there's always a sense of life and help, and there's possibility of restoration and redemption. Good fruit is to actually bring forth some evidence of life. Not some confession of faith. Not some adding to a roll of membership. Real fruit is actually changing people's lives for the better. Bringing something good into your own children and bringing forth from their own children, where they can hopefully reproduce it. And it doesn't mean everything's perfect. You can't produce everything perfect. It will. In fact, it probably would be delivered. It would be out of the world. So keeping that goodness coming. So every tree that does not bear fruit is cut down and thrown in the fire. And he repeats himself again, what he started this process. Therefore, by their fruits, you will know them. Okay. So we have to sit there and say, at the present time, what kind of tree am I? You can ask yourself, as I'm asking myself, what kind of tree am I? First of all, hopefully I'm a good tree. I may not be a mature tree. I may not be a healthy good tree, but at least I'm producing life. Or have I gone the other direction and have I become a bad tree? Am I producing what would I produce if I was a bad tree? Bad fruit. And what would that bad fruit look like, and how would it be? It would be sour to the taste, bitter to the tongue. It would be toxic to the body and to the mind, and it would be harmful to relationships. It would be damaging. It would be critical, judgmental. It would be toxic and nauseous. Ooh, don't want that. Those are bad fruit. Those are bad fruit. Malice, anger, offense, jealousy, rage, fear, worry, anxiety, all these things are bad fruit. Okay. So what kind of tree are you? And what are you producing? This is the key factor. He says, now I want to give you how this works its way out in the latter days. He says, I know this is going to shock to you, but not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, Adon, Adon. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, makes a confession. I know this is a shock. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, makes a confession will enter the kingdom of heaven. That's a lie. That's one of the false prophecies been going around. All you got to do, make this confession, make this profession. That's all you got to do. And you enter. He says, not everyone who says to me, this is Yeshua saying this. I'm not saying it. I'm trying to tell you what Yeshua said. I'm not trying to tell you what some religion says, what some doctrine of some Christian organization says. I'm telling you what he said. And I kind of believe what he said more than I do anybody, any religions, any doctrine that said. He says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, makes that profession or confession of faith will enter the kingdom of heaven. It's a shock. It is to most of our religious mindsets. He says the key is to enter the kingdom of heaven is to do the will of the Father, of my Father who is in heaven. That is how you do, not believe, do the will of my Father who is in heaven. That is how you enter the kingdom of heaven. So let's apply what we've just been learning. He says, many will say to me, in that day, Lord, Lord, they will make their profession, they make the confession they've made so many times before. They will say this, and they will say, but have we not prophesied in your name? This is where that false fruit comes. Have we not prophesied in your name? And have we not cast out demons in your name? And have we not done many signs and wonders in your name? And then he says, I will declare to you, to them, the worst words in the human language. I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. All the works, all the things you say are the false fruits that you provided, all the confessions and the professions of, if you are practicing lawlessness, I don't know you. Because if you love me, you will keep my Torah, you'll keep my instructions, you'll follow my instructions. If you don't, you can't love me and not do that. And if you don't love me, I don't know you. You think you know me, but you don't know me. You profess my name, you profess my title, but you don't know me. You use my name. You throw my name around like it's candy. Like you have the right to use it, but you don't do it in the way I told you to do it. So therefore, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Ooh. Lawlessness, Torahlessness, in other words, because lawlessness is an English way we translate this. So put the word Torah in there. Who practice Torahlessness. This is the way you do things, it's Torahlessness. It's a deliberate rejection of or contempt for or rebellion against God's instructions as given in the Torah. That's why Yeshua and the Torah are a package deal. If you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, which is what we're talking about here, you have to have them as a package deal. Yeshua and the Torah. Yeshua leading you through the Torah, helping you incorporate the Torah in your life, and empowering you to do the Torah, because the Torah is the reason why you're here. The purpose of which you to be here is to do the things the Torah says, because that is how you impact the world for positivity and for good. So this is a shocking teaching that he throws at us. He says, therefore, whoever, well, I better not do that. Next week, we're going to talk about that. He's going to come to the grand crescendo. The grand climax of the Sermon on the Mount will be next week with a illustration, kind of a parable, a summary of all the teachings he's done so far. And it's going to start out, therefore, whoever shamas these sayings of mine and does them, and asas them, I will liken to a wise man who built his house upon bedrock or upon the rock. We'll get into that more next week, but let's stop where we are right now. That's a shock to everybody right now. First of all, what does it mean to ask, to seek, to knock, and why do we do that? Second of all, who are false prophets and what's really false about their prophecy? And what is their real motivation? What is their fruit? And how do we interpret and recognize their fruit? And what kind of tree are we? What are we producing in the meantime? What is the result? What is left behind when we leave? A situation, a conversation, an interaction, a business transaction, what is left behind? What mood, what attitude, what polarity of the life and good, death and evil polarity? What is left behind? What is the residue of what we do? Now we've got all those questions, and we get this issue of, have I just been saying, Lord, Lord, and then trying to do stuff on my own and not doing what he said to do? Am I not entering the straight gate? Where have I forgotten the straight gate and the narrow road for the sake of religion? Where in the world am I? This is gut-wrenching stuff that he's been doing in the Sermon on the Mount, and he's not through yet. We're going to see it take place later, the house built on the rock, house built on sand. So where are we now? I'm going to give everybody a chance to kind of unload, download, process. Anybody with a thought? Yeah, Eileen. This one actually works.
This one works for the recording. So I wonder, for those who had never had the chance to find out about the Torah, or was taught that Torah wouldn't apply to us, but still trust and called upon the name of our Savior. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, good question. What are my thoughts about that? My thoughts are, how did I get here? I didn't get here by following the Torah. I got here by crying out. Actually, I didn't even cry out very much. I just sort of recognized my desperate need, and he stepped into the void, and he brought me there. So it's not a bad thing to cry out and call upon his name. And that's how I got here. Now, as I walked that out over a course of years, decades, he began to reopen those doors for me, and I believe he's doing it I think he's done it for everybody in this room. And we're just the tip of the iceberg. If we'll stay with this and stay according to the narrow road and the disciplines, he's going to lead us deeper and deeper. That's why we do the Torah every year. I mean, my old Baptist friends from Bible school would say, how in the world do you teach the same scriptures every year? Every season of every year you teach the same scriptures. Why don't you teach something new? That's the whole point. It is different every year, but they can't see that because it's the same words coming out in different ways, hitting you at different levels of the Spirit. So what would you say to those people who are at this stage, never understood what the Torah is all about, but they call upon the name? Let it begin the beginning, not the end. Let it be the opening of the doors rather than the ultimate result. This is now I'm good. Now I'm good. I've got it.
But if they really are following you, they are following the Torah. I mean, if they're really following what Jesus has said to do.
Yeah, that's the difference between, stating a doctrine and saying, I believe he is the Son of God who died for my sins. Difference in that and following him. Because what Diane says is absolutely correct. If you are following him, he will lead you in the Torah. There's no other place he's going to lead you. This is what he does. I only do what I see my Father doing. I only speak those things that are given to me by my Father to say. What did the Father give him to say? The Torah. So if you think you're following Yeshua and you're not doing the Torah, then you're believing in Yeshua to be your Savior, and that's fine. It's a good start. That's not where we're going to end this process. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions? Yeah.
So believing Yeshua, doing the Torah, following the Torah, does this have anything to do with the rewards that it talks about in the Bible? I don't remember exactly the words on the Bible, but I remember something about being saved or being in the kingdom, but not everyone will be on the same level, I guess, get the same rewards. So could that be related to still believing in the Savior, but not actually never following the Torah, or
And what Eileen was talking about was rewards. And particularly early in the Sermon on the Mount, he talked about your reward will be, you have your reward, you already get received, all that kind of stuff. So rewards. And then later on with some of the writings of Paul, we talk about crowns, the crown of righteousness, the crown of glory, the crown of all this, and the crown of all that. And that more attuned to long range goals. Now the issue is, once the Torah begins to be introduced, how do you respond to it? I understand that, and where I came from, my attempted suicide and almost death, and I was so confused and so messed up and so drugged and so whatever that I wasn't capable of interpreting and understanding what Torah meant. All I knew was I was desperately in need of help. And I was so desperately in need of help, I didn't know how to call upon his name. But he came. But eventually he began to talk to me about things. And I began to read his messages, and I had the benefit of not reading a bunch of Pauline doctrine first. King James Version is Pauline doctrine. I read the Red. And reading the Red is a whole different story. The letters of the red letter edition of the New Testament. Once you start reading it, you begin to realize, wait a minute, he's teaching us some severe, serious disciplines. And we learn later it's Torah. That everything he's teaching us is straight from the Torah. So, yes, I mean, the rewards are, I don't believe we're talking about rewards when you get to heaven somewhere. I think they're the opening up of the possibilities you have on earth. The quicker you accept and take on the Torah and its ways and the disciplines of God, the more open you are, and the rewards are not for you so you can pat yourself on the back and put them on your shelf and say, look at my reward. The rewards are so you now have access to things that you can share with other people that you couldn't have shared with other people, give to other people.
I'm not trying to boast myself, but as you know, I all do alterations for dresses and stuff like that. And I got a text message from the lady that does the dressmaking downtown. She gave my number to a lady that was in an emergency. I mean, she had to have that dress done today. Me and Terry are coming back from New Boston to that little nursery out there, that little country nursery greenhouse. And I got the message, and I'm like, this is really strange because I'm in the area where she lives. And I thought to myself, she says she has her sewing machine set up and everything. Terry thinks I'm crazy doing this. I'm just glad he covered me for prayer. But we went home. I went back to her house in the middle of nowhere in Hooks. I don't know how I found it. I found it. And here she comes, lady, and she's in desperate need of hemming this dress, and she has no idea what she's doing. So I get on her machine and I do it for her. Find out. I know her grandkids. I went to Church on the Rock with them and everything. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I know this family. And she says, I want to pay you. And I go, no, I'm doing a mitzvah. And she goes, what's that? And I told her it's a good deed. I said, I'm going to bless you, and I'm not expecting anything in return. And you should have seen her face. Just her face alone was all the blessing I got. And the whole way home, I'm like, Lord, thank you for letting me do this. And the strangest thing is I left my coffee cup there. And I'm thinking, oh no, I got to get that cup. So, but this is how she blessed me. She didn't make me go all the way back. She met me at the highway. And I looked at her and she goes, here's your cup. And I go, just that little bitty thing that she did returned me and a blessing. And I thought, gosh, that was.
Parameters open up whenever we do the little things.
Yeah.
Even the mitzvah.
Yeah. So I'm the alteration 911 call.
So if we interpret if we interpret rewards in the biblical context, where it is something that opens the door to another level of service, another level of impact in the world, then yes. yeah, you given context to what we talk about, and it opens those doors and creates that curiosity, that interest, that passion, that desire to have something deeper. So yeah, all right. Other questions, comments? Okay. At 3:00 today, if you can come back, if you wish to, if you remember Kendra, if you just want to remember Kendra, we're going to have Kendra's memorial service. Her aunt, who was very close to her, and her husband, I think it is, are going to be in. They're already here from New Mexico, so they come from Albuquerque to meet with these strange people that Kendra loved, and that loved her back. And so they don't maybe know you. I've never met them until yesterday. I met them for the first time. But I heard about Maureen and her husband for 30 years, 20 years, I guess, in the process. And so I met them. I encourage you to come. They're not traditional Christians or Jews. Matter of fact, he's Indian, not Native American. He's Indian. And he's kind of a naturist or a healer, whatever the thing, and probably more familiar with Hinduism than he is with Christianity. That's exactly the ones we want to welcome into the doors. We want to welcome in the doors and love them and treat them good. So I encourage you to come and just be friends, and if you can, be here at 3:00. It'll be short, be sweet, be the BLC way, which is the only way we know. It'll be low key, friendly, sweet, not religious, not formal at all. And I will encourage everybody to speak about what you knew about Kendra, or what you remember about her, or how she blessed your life. So, well, thank you guys for sitting with me all this time, dealing with some difficult teachings, difficult studies, but very important ones for us to know. Next week, we will conclude the Sermon on the Mount portion of the teachings of Yeshua. We'll move on then into the Kingdom of Heaven parables. That will be a few weeks. We'll be focusing on the Kingdom of Heaven is like, and what is the Kingdom of Heaven like, and do we even understand what it means? We'll be on that for a while, and then we'll go on into the Upper Room Discourse, and then the Olivet Discourse, and then the post-resurrection appearances. We're going to focus on Yeshua all the way through the rest of this year. So, thank you for coming. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.